Over the last 2 years, I've been producing some documents called The Voice. This details an NSA-run mass mind manipulation program in this country. This program also involves microchipping individuals, genetic engineering and experimentation, and is run from a base deep in the Berkshire countryside. I've been involved with this program for a number of years now. In fact, I was first inducted in 1972. I worked at the base, which is located underground at Peasmore in Berkshire, as a security officer.
What sort of duties did that include?
The main duties as a security officer then were to patrol the premises. You're overseeing goods in and out. Goods I use in a loose term because obviously we're not going to know what sort of goods they're going to be. Basically, all the usual security operations.
What size of base is this?
Well, when I was there, the complex itself was approximately 450 yards by 650 yards, but obviously since then it's probably doubled in size.
How many levels?
6 levels. They were the main levels.
And how far would they be down underground?
The deepest point would have been about a mile. I only had access to a certain amount of information, so I only know about those 6 levels.
So, starting from scratch, how did you get involved with the base?
Well, I was sort of manoeuvred into working there as opposed to just being a guinea pig like many thousands of others. So it was a manoeuvred opportunity by the NSA to get me into the base where they could keep an eye on me as well as to actually take part in the security procedures.
So did you apply to the Ministry of Defence? Or?
Oh, no. I was approached direct by the controllers of the programme.
Why? I mean, why did your name come out of the hat? Did you win the Reader's Digest competition?
That would have been a nice way around it. No, I was also a participant in a government-run survey. Since I was a child, this survey is ongoing. And by 1972, when the survey actually started to link hand in hand, if you like, with the programme, I was monitored very closely from 72 onwards. So by 79.
By who?
The survey is run by the governments of 3 main countries. That's the UK, the USA and Canada. This survey is actually run from Harwell, who have very close links, as I said, with Peasmore.
What sort of links does Harwell have with Peasmore?
Because a lot of genetic engineering and experimentation takes place, obviously Harwell is the main place of the survey. They have direct links because the guinea pigs that are taken to Peasmore and used for experimentation engineering, there's obviously a direct link with Harwell and a number of other establishments, such as Portland Down.
And where else?
Watchfield, over in Oxfordshire, the military science place over there. Greenham Common is also linked, so is Boscombe Down. Boscombe Down is used mainly for the import and export of the hardware used by the programme.
What sort of hardware are they dealing with then?
Well, we're talking here, the hardware is actually super stealth type aircraft.
So, altogether quite normal technology?
I wouldn't use the word normal technology.
Secret, but advanced?
Very advanced. I mean, some of the machinery they've got is advanced to a level where you could say that certainly an alien technology was involved at one stage.
So why would that suggest, I mean, surely we're pretty intelligent ourselves.
When we're talking in terms of the technology that people have had a glance at over at Groom Lake, Area 51, it's that sort of technology we're talking about. The hardware used is the hardware being tested at Groom Lake. It's been tested here in the UK since the mid-60s. I mean, they used areas around Salisbury Plain in the 60s, hence all the reports around Warminster at the time.
Yeah.
That was the hardware being tested.
So what kind of hardware are we talking about? Flying discs, alien spacecraft, Bob Lazar type stuff?
Well, not
sport model?
Well, I couldn't go as far as actually, the S4 type thing. But certainly disc-shaped aircraft, triangular-shaped aircraft. I do know for a fact that under the NATO banner, one of the hardware devices used since the mid-80s is a triangular craft, quite large, hover capabilities, usually silent. That's been test flown in many Western European countries, including Belgium.
So that is our military?
That's our military, yes. They're our devices, yeah.
So, getting back to Harwell, what influence or what part does that play in the program?
Because there's a lot of genetic engineering and experimentation, let's use the word alteration and modification, perhaps would be more like it.
Is that conducted on humans?
It is, yes.
So how does one actually realise that or know
it? You don't actually realise you're part of the program or the survey. Most participants in the survey are active from early childhood. You undergo more medical checkups, more x-rays, more blood tests. You are taken to various establishments, usually Harwell itself, that's the main one, and you are monitored biologically, medically throughout your life. As I say, this is ongoing.
So what key factor are they looking for?
I think what they're trying to produce in the long run is a super being.
So is this derived back to the World War II experiments that Hitler did?
Certainly the paperclip scientists, who were captured by the Americans, mostly taken over to the USA. Certainly that sort of experimentation has carried on since the late 40s. Yeah.
So you started at this base when?
I started work in September of 1979, and that carried on until about Christmas of 79. It came to a stage when they needed to physically do something about the way I was becoming aggressive and trying to get away from the program.
What is this program?
Well, this is mind manipulation, genetic engineering, as I said. They use, because UFO research plays about 50% of the program's activities. They use a lot of researchers, they use psychics. They stage abductions, so that's where the military abductions come in. They actually have...
So the military are doing these abductions and the aliens aren't doing it?
I wouldn't say the aliens aren't doing it. Obviously there is ample evidence to suggest that there are alien abductions, but certainly the military take more than their fair share. Yeah, I'll credit that.
And this is for what purpose?
Well, this is to create an image in abductees' minds that they've been abducted by an alien race that perhaps are more of an evil intent towards the human race than they actually are. It also gives the opportunity for the military to microchip people, to indoctrinate them via mind manipulation. They can program people's minds. They can set tasks for these people to go out and do at any given time at the flick of a switch, basically.
What sort of chips are you talking about? Surely they can be detected under X-ray?
Not under normal X-ray, no. These are very advanced, very sophisticated microchips, and depending on where they are located, there's obviously a number of locations around the body where they can be located. I have two.
Where would they be?
The first one was implanted behind the sternum.
Right.
Now that doubles as a tracking device and a biological function, so they can monitor anyone's biological functions any time. But because that one's placed behind the sternum, it's very close to the heart, so it also acts as an initiator for a cardiac arrest should the need arise to incapacitate someone.
So how do you know that happened in the past?
In May of 1980, yes, they actually tried out the device, and this resulted in a massive cardiac arrest. I was rushed to St Bart's Hospital in London, and yes, it could have killed me that particular morning. Because of the power they used on that particular occasion, it left me with a slight depression on the left side of my chest.
Right.
Since
so
1980...
was that not picked up on the X-ray?
Well, again, this is where this survey comes in. All major hospitals, certainly all regional hospitals, have a computer database that any information on any patient is tapped in, and immediately it will come up on the screen if the person has any connection with the survey.
So exactly what influence do these implants have? And surely it can be
they can be detected by CAT scans. Certainly
a brain scan?
Yeah. Any devices, and they use quite a lot of the cranial implants, they can be detected only by CAT scans. So obviously, if I was to say, well, look, I want a CAT scan, it's going to cost me 450 quid, yeah, I'll go and have a CAT scan, and they'd pick it up. But the problem being, whatever hospital I went to have that CAT scan, it's going to go down on the records, it's going to get back to Harwell on the survey that, oh, Mr. King's had a private CAT scan to detect the implant, and you know, we'll be back to square one. What would be the point?
So, where is the second implant you mentioned?
Well, as I say, the first one's in the sternum, the second one's in the head.
And when was that second one put in?
The second one was implanted in 79 at the base. The first one in 76. I underwent a full program abduction, and obviously at the time I believed it was an alien abduction, and it wasn't until obviously sometime later that I was informed it was a program.
So how many times have you been abducted?
I underwent a partial abduction in 1974 and a full abduction in 76, so it's actual two, yeah.
What do you mean by a partial abduction, and what happened when you were abducted?
Well, in 74 I was due to be abducted at a place called Barn Hill in Shingle.
How do you know you were due to be abducted?
Well, the craft came over. Again, this is looking back on the information I now know. It was a program hardware. It's one of their craft that came over. The idea was to abduct me there and then, even alongside another witness, another researcher friend at the time. At the last minute, just things were aborted. So you know.
Any reason?
None given to me. None given to me. It's just listed on the files as a partial.
Right. So how did you get involved with Peasmore? And what is Peasmore?
Peasmore is an NSA/United States Air Force secure installation. It's a subsurface base at Peasmore, underground.
Why is it called Peasmore? I mean, we've been to the area. We can't find anywhere with the signpost saying U.S. secret base underneath.
And a big arrow pointing down.
Yeah.
On all official documents, Peasmore's the name they use. It's the closest village. I mean, the very edge of the base would be directly under, within 2 miles of the village of Peasmore.
So where did the NSA originally set the place up?
They used, previous to Peasmore, they used another base, which unfortunately I'm not at liberty to say where that base is at the moment. I have a schedule to keep to. Now this is...
What do you mean by a schedule to keep to?
Well, as I say, I've been releasing this information for the past 2 years. It's information that I've been asked to release.
By who and why you particularly?
Well, again,
why do they go to Tony Dodd or Mary Seal or Quest International? Why do they just send a nice fat envelope to Timothy Good or somebody?
Yeah. Well, they are using a number of researchers here and, as I say, in the States. Same things happening over there. The people who are assisting, who want to see this information got out, are a section of British intelligence. They are the Defence Intelligence Section.
The BDI?
The British, yeah. Now, They got to a stage. Well, they got to a stage
surely they're violating the various codes and all that sort of
they're
stuff.
definitely breaking the Official Secrets Act, even by giving me information, passing information. But it's got to a stage when they realise that the NSA are literally going to take over the intelligence network, not only in this country, but virtually, in the end, the whole world. They don't
who runs the
that.
NSA? Is it the Reptilians or what?
No one knows. They're this faceless bunch of characters who are above the NSA. No one knows who they are. But certainly the NSA have got more than enough clout, so everyone...
So the British defence people are getting a bit peeved off that...
They're getting worried. I mean, the programme diverted some years ago to a very sinister side when they were using spare parts from humans. They were abducting people. A lot of these people never saw the light of day again. They were used as spare parts.
That's like the film Coma?
Very like the film Coma. In fact, that sort of regional hospital policy where they get taken to a certain operating theatre, and that's the termination room. Well, think of that laterally, and that is what happens at Harwell and Peasmore. Various individuals are abducted, taken there, they never come out again. They're used as nice, healthy specimens.
Again, are they genetically selected for any particular reason, or are we just dealing with a relatively random cat?
In the beginning, it was just, a random thing. I mean, anyone would do. I mean, obviously, we can get a number of good spare parts from this person, all well and good, but then they started to get very fussy. The only grey, now if we use the term grey as an alien being, was those that actually were around the base at the time.
Right.
At the
so
base,
how many are you talking about greys at Peasmore then?
I've only seen 2 greys at Peasmore.
Right.
The rest,
what do they look like?
Well, the typical picture everyone gives. Very small, very frail, large heads, very dark, wraparound eyes.
And were they escorted by military personnel?
Escorted by military and NSA personnel.
And were there any reptilians in there?
On one occasion I did see, yes, what I would call reptilian. Certainly
so how different are they to the grey?
Totally different. These are much bigger, much stronger. They gave an aura of, strength and power, as if you don't mix with these characters.
As big as a man or bigger? Or?
Certainly bigger than, a good 6 inches taller than me, so well over 6 foot, yeah.
So, what do they look like, talk like? I mean, did you get any kind of...
No communication at all, no. Again...
Under what circumstances did you see this?
Well, I think it was more like a case of they could just walk around there as if they owned the place. That was just the assumption.
So they were not escorted? The Reptilians were not escorted?
The Reptilians, although obviously everyone in the base is, let's use the word loosely, escorted. But I think it was more a case of the Reptilians were escorting the NSA personnel around the base.
And that's it for CSETI. Suffolk, England.
In a previous interview, Barry, you mentioned seeing a lizard-like creature at Peasmore. Would you tell us more about that?
Yeah, on one occasion, it was just a single occasion, I was in the main corridor at the base, and coming out of the room, along the main corridor was this very large creature, very tall, well over 6 foot, being accompanied by 2 men in suits, which I took to be NSA operatives. They're the only ones who don't wear badges in the place. I just stopped in my tracks, very, very shaken. I mean, it's a very powerful looking being, very difficult to describe, just very, very tall, very well built, very strong, well over, as I say, well over 6 foot. It must have towered at least a foot over my head. A greeny, browny, mottled type of skin. I tried to take in as many details as possible, but as I say, it literally caught me unawares. I was really put into shock. Didn't know what the hell it was. It was just casually walking along the main corridor with the 2 operatives. Got a very strong sense of evil and nastiness about the thing. It worried me for quite a while afterwards. I mean, you're never told. The security people are last to be told what's going on. But it was inferred by others at the time that was one of the reptile species. Of course, it didn't mean that much to me at the time. but every time you asked questions, no one wanted to answer. It was just strongly inferred that, yeah, that was a reptilian, you don't want to mess with that, and it was just left at that. But over the years, it just seems more and more plausible to me that that also was another creation from the base. It just, you know, there may well be reptilian races, but it's just as easy for the military to have actually made this thing, rather than it being an actual reptilian.
Like the rest of them?
Like the rest of them, yeah. I sit more happier with that yeah, that was actually made rather than an actual species, yeah.
That it was a program-generated life form.
I'm pretty certain it was, yeah.
Did he make sounds or say anything?
No, it never looked at me. It just continued walking. There was no interaction whatsoever. I only got some interaction from the two guys who, I'm standing there, mouth wide open, gaping at this, and I just got the look from them, just you know, and they just continued, and I continued about my business. No, there was no sound, no speaking, no nothing whatsoever. It was just walking along the main corridor with the two guys. That was it.
Did you have any idea what his function was?
Well, again, you ask as many questions as you formulate afterwards, once you've got over the initial shock of what the hell was that. No one wanted to know, no one wanted to easily give answers to questions. It was a case of, well, you saw it, that was it, you know, don't ask questions. Troublemakers ask questions and they don't want that.
He was walking on 2 feet, was he, or 4 feet, or?
2, yeah. I was
feet.
standing upright. I mean, as I say, I'm trying to take in. This all happened probably within 30 seconds. I'm taking it in, feeling, you know, phew, yeah, I don't want to meet this on a dark night anywhere. Yeah, I never even bothered to look back. It was, well, the glance back I gave both the figure and the two guys was very brief. While I continued, that's it. I've got jobs to do. I'm away. That's not my business.
But over a period of time, you were there for upwards of a year or so altogether. Why did this one bit 30 seconds? Why did this brief?
Because it was so out of place with what was going on there. I mean, everyone's so used to the 3 different phases, you know, of development of the PGs, and this literally stuck out like a sore thumb. You know, it's just not the usual thing you see around. It was just the once only. Yeah, it was very unnerving, very scary.
Any final questions?
You didn't see an insignia or anything on his clothing? I mean, he was dressed in something, presumably.
If it was, again, I never noticed. I didn't discern, you know, oh, that was skin and that was clothing. That just didn't, that wasn't there. It was just this tall being. I mean, mostly my focus was from, you know, chest upwards. I mean, the head, you know, I was literally expecting it to turn around and face me, and then I wouldn't know what I would have done if it had done, but it just kept looking straight and continuing, as if I wasn't even there. So, no, I didn't take in that many details. What I saw was, yeah, quite enough, thanks very much.
Is there anything that you could say it looked like?
Well, again, you've seen drawings that people have done over the years of supposed reptilians, Dracos, whatever the names are given. It lizard-like. I mean, it literally is like a very tall, very big lizard. I mean, you know, half expecting the big forked tongue to come out, but, you know, again, it's just what you expect, what you're programmed to expect a lizard-type being to be like.
Any idea why they would create such a creature?
Well, it's exactly the same like the normal, if you can call them that, PGs. I mean, they're there for military abductions. There's an aura of mystery over the reptilians. They're the dangerous ones. They're the ones who are in charge. They're just continuing that. Yeah.
Anything finally that you would like to say to the CSETI group?
Well, as I mentioned,
any word of advice on it?
Well, there is. I mean, there's insiders out there who probably know a hell of a lot more than I'll ever know, and there's a lot of people out there who want to come forward. Just give them the reassurances that they'll be listened to without being laughed at. They'll come forward.
Can you help in that regard?
Well, it's limited to what I can personally do. I mean, I can only help with people over on this side of the Atlantic, and I know there's a load of people
locally,
who are involved. And by making my documents known, they know that I was involved. It might make them a little bit safer in coming forward.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. We certainly appreciate your time and efforts.
Okay.
You mentioned something about a trip seat in the base.
Yeah, there is an area of the base called the labs and electronic areas. Situated in the labs are devices which are called trip seats. Now these are very large chairs connected to very advanced computer systems, and a guinea pig is strapped to this chair. You are interfacing directly with the computers. During this interfacing, the individual is then programmed by the personnel at the base to literally do whatever they want you to do. It's advanced psychotronics.
So how does this programming take place and what does it involve?
Again, depending on what tasks they want that individual to perform at some stage. I mean, if you've seen the film Telephone, a 1977 film, sleeper agents, for want of a better term, were activated by a simple single telephone call. They were given a phrase over the telephone. Immediately, the
or assassination, or
I suppose they could be used for that. Although I don't really see why there'd be such a need.
So what exactly was involved with the trip seat?
Well, as I say, it was basically programming. You could be programmed to do.
I mean, how did this happen? Was it a visual image, or?
Yeah, you've got on the trip seat, as I say, you're interfacing with the computers. You've got a very big wraparound screen in front of you. This is holographic. There are also a special helmet and visor placed on your head. So literally all images, subliminal images that come through. They use the EBL.
What's that?
Electronic brain link.
What does that involve?
Well, that involves the images directly being converted from the computers into images acceptable by the brain. They're implanted. They're held there until activated at a later time by.
So is this a direct electrical connection to your mind, or?
You are connected directly to the seat, which, as I say, comes through the computer. So yeah, you're interfacing. Literally, it's man and machine as one.
So is there any psychic use for this, or?
They use mostly psychics there. They enhance anyone with any level of psychic ability. If they can make use of that, I mean, the military use people for remote viewing targets in military installations in other countries. So anyone with any trace of psychic ability in them, yeah, they'll enhance that considerably. PK, remote viewing, and a number of other bits and pieces.
So are they able to see what you're seeing in your head, or is it just a one-way thing into you?
They can't actually not visually see what you're seeing. They just know what they're pumping through to you, so they virtually know what's happening anyway.
So how do they know that you?
Well, they give simple tasks first, like say 2 days after being in the trip seat. Then they'll set you a task, and if you can perform that task 100%, they know it's worked, and then they can actually program more sophisticated tasks for you at a later date.
What sort of things did they use on you?
Basically, the first thing was to erase, once everything had gone in, was to erase from my conscious memory everything about the base. So come January of 80, when they brain scrambled me, for want of a better term, it was an erasure job done on me, but they knew at some stage that someone would be able to retrieve certain parts.
I mean, obviously you're talking about this now, 16 years later. How is it that you're able to even talk about it or discuss it?
Well, during 1988, I underwent a truck stop event. This is where the Defence Intelligence people came into the scene, 1988. Because they've got access to exactly the same techniques used by the program at Peasmore, they brought me out of the post-hypnotic blocks.
So they reversed the process?
So they reversed the process virtually, gave back a lot of the information. There's still a lot blocked, but they decided that, yeah, they'll reverse as much as suited them for information to be released. So, yeah, I got a lot of conscious recall after they reversed the situation. and they've sort of filled in so many gaps since. Bits and pieces of, well, physically going back to the base.
Which entrance did you use to get into the base?
Bravo, mainly. That's Greenham Common.
Greenham Common. Which we were there recently. That's through one of the large hangars?
Yeah.
Or the underground bunkers, rather?
Yeah, that's it.
So, what other things did they do to, and how was that involved? Did they do that in the truck when you had the truck, or did they take you somewhere else?
Well, the truck stop event, I mean, I was, because I was still under the control of the electronic brain link, so, and DI8 having access to exactly the same
So how did that
equipment.
Work? How are you under the control of the brain link?
Well, that's where that...
the implant?
The implant comes in, yeah. I mean, as I say, you're tracked.
So how does this happen? Is it through?
I'm not too up on the technical side of things,
yeah.
but obviously the equipment is there. They can use it. They can track someone. They can monitor the biological functions, and they can literally there and then.
Right.
And they diverted my truck to a small lay-by, whereby I was then dragged out of the truck, bundled into the back of a van, and it was a process of virtually reversing the initial process that was done.
So why have they done this? Why did they suddenly decide to reverse the process? So you could tell us what's going on in the base?
They needed someone. As I say, I think they saw it as, to suit their purposes, they needed someone to start getting some information out.
And at that time, were you involved with London UFO Studies? Or had any
in 1988, no, I wasn't, no. No, I was...
so it was after that event?
Oh, it was after that.
So were there any other like that which happened afterwards? Was that just a one-off or what?
Well, that truck stop in 88, it was a case of information was then given to me, which included a load of photographs, maps, codes. I was to hide that documentation and retrieve it at a later time.
So that's maps and codes and photographs?
Maps, codes, photographs of the base.
Who took the photographs?
They did, defence people.
So I heard later that you tried to retrieve those photographs?
I tried to retrieve those on 2 occasions.
In 1995?
1994, I tried to retrieve them in, I think it's November.
And where did you keep them that you needed
They were kept at a firm of solicitors, which I thought was a pretty clever move. Thinking, well, no one would actually even think of looking. But the Peasmore personnel obviously knew every move I was making before I even made it.
So it turns out that you tried to recover those documents and photographs.
On 2 occasions,
and
yeah.
What happened?
Well, the first occasion, I was stopped on my way into town to pick up the documentation. And 2 guys in a white car physically prevented me from, they knew where I was going, what I was doing, so it was a case of,
So how is it that you were given information to release?
As I say,
when you tried to release it, somebody else says no. There implies there's a conflict there.
Well, obviously there's a conflict there. I mean, you've got a small band of British intelligence people up against the whole organisation, the NSA. So obviously, even though it would suit the purposes of British intelligence to get this information out, it obviously doesn't suit the purpose of the NSA.
Is there a possibility of that happening again in the future?
Well, there's no chance now of even trying a retrieval because they've been removed from the premises. So
but in terms of new information, maybe actual video of the place, because that's what we need nowadays. Is video footage of
that
the
would
breeding
be
chambers.
That would be the cream on the cake. Would be to try and get some visuals actually of the base, but to actually.
Right. Do you think you've anything over there? Your ring's detecting things, is it?
Oh, the ring ain't, but I am.
Such as what?
Oh, well, someone's having a good snoop with some binoculars or something over there somewhere.
Right. To get back to what the NSA did and the influence that they had.
Well, it's a global thing, really. I mean, the operation that's taking place over here is tiny compared to what's happening in the States. Obviously, the same thing is happening over there, but on a much bigger scale.
Well, what's happening here in England, in the English bases and the British bases here in England? We've talked about Peasmore. What exactly goes on in Peasmore, and what's the situation there?
Well, the program, with the help of alien technology, have created their own life forms, their own little greys, really, if you like.
Right. Are they derived from grey DNA?
Yeah. With the technology that we've gained, obviously, since experimentation since the Second World War. So combined, yeah.
During the Second World War, we were already involved with greys. Is that what you're saying?
At the latter stages of the Second World War, yeah.
So was that Hitler or was it us?
Both. Although.
So you're saying that during the Second World War we were dealing with genetic engineering at an elementary level with grey aliens.
The Germans were ahead of us with the experimentation, but certainly both sides, Allied and Axis, were.
So how do you base that criteria?
On the information I was shown.
At Peasmore?
At Peasmore and one or two other locations, yeah.
So in many regards you're sort of like an English Bob Lazar. You've been presented with information in a base, and do you think so?
There are similarities, but I don't claim to have had any physical occasions with the machinery whatsoever. I mean, a lowly security guard, if you like.
So, what other activity happened there as such?
Well, as I say, they've got their own created life forms.
Yeah, the programmable, the PGLFs.
The PGLFs, so...
And how many of them are there, and what sort of quantity are we dealing with?
I would imagine hundreds. I mean, of each.
So how many did you see?
They're in 3 stages.
Right.
The tiny fetus-like stage ones.
And how are they generated?
The actual mechanics behind that, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, as a security
guard... So
what
did you see as such?
They're in, like, racks or pods, if you like.
Yeah.
And there's row upon row of each of the 3 stages. Stage 2 and 3 use the same type of large rack.
Yeah.
And they're in certain pods. And there's obviously row and row and row on each level.
What sort of size of container are we dealing with?
The larger racks are about 40 foot long, 6 foot by 4 foot or thereabouts.
Is this in some kind of a clinical ward or factory type environment? Or?
Oh no, well no, it's more like a warehouse. I mean, literally they are stores. They call them the racks, the sheds.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, row after row, these things are just stored there for use.
These things are alive, obviously,
yeah.
But they're in a sleep state, or? I mean, you mentioned before that you could actually walk up to them and you'd see an expression on them. Was that the human ones?
Because they're programmed directly from the central computer systems, literally anything that goes in, they're programmed to go and do. They haven't literally minds of their own as such, but you can get something out of them. I mean...
In what way?
Well, it was a bit of a standing joke between the 4 British security guards there, that there was something strange about the faces of these little creatures. And 2 of them were joking one afternoon and saying, well look, you get a screwdriver and you just carefully prise off this black thing on his face.
Right, so you can walk up to them and you can touch them.
Well, you can pick one up, literally shove it over your shoulder. They're so small and light, but very, very strong. You know, they are very, very strong. Very, you could literally, go and pick one up.
So there's sort of a stupor, a coma type status?
Stupor. Not a coma, because literally once the programming starts, whoosh, off they go and do whatever they've got to go and do, you know, what they've been programmed to do. So I don't really know how you can describe the state they're in. They're just, they're just suddenly, like automatons, they're switched on and off.
And are there human derivatives of these?
Oh yeah.
And what are they like?
Well, this is the two that they used at Barn Hill in Chingford in '74. Totally different to the small grey-like ones. One was about 6 foot tall, completely featureless, had a face as such, but no eyes, mouth, nose, none of that.
Yeah.
Very long hair, so that was a close
What
to
sort
human
of
type.
colour of hair do they have?
Blonde, that was blonde hair. And the second one was again about human size, but completely featureless. No discernible features whatsoever. They also have
So you're talking sort of a perfect human, or just a non-event of a human?
well, basically just
Like a mannequin? Is that why it's called Project Mannequin?
oh, that's a different story altogether. That I mean, that was
so
a play
these
on
beings
words.
are not to do with mannequin. It's not.
Mannequin is a project,
But it's not what this is. What these creatures are.
no, they're not mannequins.
No, in terms of the project name.
No, the project name was devised. I mean, it was changed. At first, it was called Puppet Master. That was the name of the first project. It went into Mannequin.
So when did Puppet Master start?
About 58 in the States. The idea, because again, they play on words. Like most codes they use in any project, gives you an insight into what the project really is about. So Puppet Master, masters and slaves.
Yes.
They were pulling the strings, literally.
Yeah.
Play on words.
Yeah.
They just changed Puppet
So
Master
we have the
to
first
Mannequin.
type of grey, which we're manufacturing and breeding in Peasmore. What's the second stage?
After the tinies, the tiddlers,
Yeah.
we get to stage 2, which I suppose if you relate the PGs to humans, you'd have the baby, you'd have the teenager, then you'd have the adult.
Right.
Stage 2 is the teenager.
What sort of age does it? How long does it take for these things to come to be generated?
Well, that's quite rapid. That's a very strange thing about it. Between stages 1 and 3, there's barely months. So between the time of when I first started working there in August, September of '79, so by December, I was already seeing from what used to be stage 1, that's walking around stage 3. So very short period of time.
So you were there for a very brief period of time.
I was actually a security officer. Obviously, I still had connections on and off between December '79 and beginning of '81. So
Right.
there was still some connection with them.
So you brought in there as a security officer just to simply get you on the base, or would you did a 9 till 5 or 5-hour week job or whatever?
No, I was actually just before being taken into Peasmore to work as a security officer. I was with a security company working in Cirencester, Garders. I don't know if I should actually say that, but I have
Right.
now. As your plain ordinary patrol officer. A manoeuvred loss of contract by Garders meant Garders moved out of Cirencester very quickly, and within a week I found myself working at Peasmore. So it was all manoeuvred very, very quickly, very conveniently, very smoothly, no problems at all.
So what happens with these beings, what are they called?
Program generated life forms, or PG tips, as the four of us used to refer them to. They're used for the military abductions. They are your greys. They are what the witnesses see, the abductees see. They see
And what
these.
happens to the people who are abducted?
Well, they're taken in. Well, if they're abducted from their home or a car in the field, then using the program's hardware plus the PGs, a total abduction scenario will take place. Or they can be taken from their homes, their vehicles, if they're out in the open. They can get taken to the base, and an abduction will take place in the trip scene.
So they are induced into thinking they're being abducted by aliens.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what's this to say that these aliens are actually alien, or not just some kind of human derivative?
Well, obviously, there are real aliens.
Well, Why is it so obvious? I mean, if the government is manufacturing these
I don't
things,
think.
what's
Well,
to
I don't
suggest
think
that we
it's
are dealing
within
with
the
aliens?
powers. Well, sheer numbers of reported abductions. I don't think.
So not all of the abductions are done by the government then?
Oh no, I don't think that would be possible. Also, some of the more flamboyant, some of the more exotic features that some of the abductees come out with, like going through walls, various
Is that
really
not
way
induced in the trip seat as a dream that they're going to the wall?
I've never known that. No. So that seems a bit too advanced for a military abduction.
What sort of scale are we dealing with in the trip seat? Well, how many of them? How many people would be going through them?
I know there's at least 100,000 programmed individuals at the moment.
Yeah.
So there's going to be quite a large percentage that would have gone through that trip seat procedure.
Yeah.
Well,
you've been discussing the PGLFs, the 3 stages that are involved with
3
these.
stages, yeah.
And these are definitely alien.
Well, they're derived from an alien technology, certainly, and they look more alien than humans, yeah.
So what exactly do they look like? What sort of skin do they have? What sort of other features do they have?
Well, their skin, it's to the touch. I mean, it's not clammy as some believe.
Is it warm?
Very dry, very dry.
Scaly?
Not really. It's like, parchment paper. It's a little bit rough, but I don't know.
How many fingers do they have?
Well, some have got 4 fingers and a thumb. They always have a thumb. Some have got 3 fingers and a thumb.
Right.
It literally does depend on what they're going to be used for.
So they manufacture them according to specifications?
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier about this seems to have started, this breeding program seems to have started during the war, during the latter stage of the war, and the Germans and the Americans and British were involved with that, is that?
Yeah, well, I think the Germans, as I said, were more advanced than the Americans were.
So how do you know that? Where did you get that information from?
Information shown to me. I've been shown a lot of documentation, films, slides, files, a lot of information I was told to release at certain stages.
So what sort of films and slides are you dealing with? Or files?
A lot of it's gun camera stuff, so I've seen discs, alien life forms.
What kind of alien life forms?
Some really weird.
Humanoid?
Well, there's been the typical grey, creatures that perhaps look more like us, what I suppose you would call Nordics.
Yeah.
And some that you wouldn't even realise were life forms at all, unless you were told they were life forms.
Well, what does that mean? Were they sort of like...
We got some that appear to be like giant crystals that communicate. Yeah.
Crystals?
Weird.
I mean, that's a weird thing.
Oh, there's a lot of weird things out there.
Is he dealing with crystal entities?
Well, they just appear to look like big blocks of crystal, I mean, shining.
And what do they contain? Some kind of an intelligence or what?
Oh, a vast intelligence. I mean, they just look like a big prism.
Right. And where are these situated or located?
Well, on the films, let's say various shots, sun gun camera shots.
And you were shown this film at Peasmore?
Oh no.
So where were you shown this information?
Well, I underwent 2 or 3 interviews with the MOD.
Yeah. What sort of interviews were these?
Well, very casual, very friendly, very chummy type of interviews.
And when did that happen?
1978 was the first. March 1978 was the first interview.
Yes. And where did that take place?
At an unspecified location in London.
Basically at Queen Anne's Gate or someplace like that?
Someplace like that, yeah.
And you were hauled in, dragged in, somebody phoned you up and said, hey Barry, come in, we wanted to show you some films on aliens?
To cut a long story short, I was driving home from a friend's house late at night. I stopped to give a lift to a very well-to-do looking gentleman who stuck out like a sore thumb, hitching a lift.
Where was this, in London?
In Leytonstone, yeah.
So there's obviously not many well-to-do people in Leytonstone.
Well, I wouldn't have thought you would have seen too many city gent types on the
Right.
lift at about 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
So I
Unless
just
he was out
casually-
tidying for business or something.
Well,
Yeah.
obviously I thought well, he's had trouble with his car somewhere.
Yeah. So what happened then?
I stopped. He opened the car door, stuck his head in. Well, thanks for stopping, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, get in, fucking help. And started to drive away. I noticed, because, again, it's near Whips Cross Hospital, not too much traffic that time of night.
Yeah.
There was a car parked on the other side of the road, facing the other way.
Yeah.
Lights out. I started to drive away. Immediately, I was offered a cigarette by this gentleman.
Yeah.
Strange type of cigarette. It was a brown,
Cigar?
long, thin. Well, in between a cigarette and a cigar.
Yeah.
Immediately, I lit that up. Noticed that the car that had been parked over on the grass verge to my right
Yeah.
came onto the road, came behind me. I immediately felt a bit strange, woozy, lightheaded.
So it was drugged in some way. So they got you...
Well, I immediately remembered the steering wheel being pulled sharply to the left, and then from then onwards, very disjointed. You know, I don't remember
Right.
very much at all.
So you're then taken to a building of unspecified location.
Well, I then remember driving actually in central London itself, being directed to an underground car park, told to park the car in a certain location, taken up in the lift, led along a corridor into a big main office,
Yeah.
then through into a small office, and interview took place.
And that, you were shown files,
Shown files.
What sort of files, what sort of volume of file are you dealing with?
Well, it was a very quick procedure, you know.
Yeah.
Look at that, look at
Pictures,
that, look at this,
information?
look at that. Names, locations.
What sort of names?
Civilian and military names. I was told to take in as much detail as I could and to remember certain names and watch out for these names sometime in the future.
Have you published those names in the voice documents?
Some of them have been so far, some I've yet to do, yeah, at the right time.
Yeah. So what generally are we talking about here? What general theme are we getting? We seem to be we have the NSA, Hitler, or the British. Were the British involved with this generation of aliens in the 1940s?
Oh yeah, the British have always worked very closely with the Americans, yeah. I mean, everyone bands about this New World Order business. Well, basically, yes, that's the big agenda everyone's working for, but not everyone's got the right idea.
Right. So what's the general reason for this? Or can you be more specific?
I'll be as specific as I can. The idea is to have, let's call them the elite. Again, another strange little title, but let's call them the elite.
Or the Illuminati?
In charge of everyone.
The Illuminati, or?
I think they're all part and parcel of this whole
Or whatever.
package. Those that are going to be in charge of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a masters and slaves situation. If we can have a nice, docile, manipulated public throughout the world,
Yeah.
run by the masters,
Right.
those in charge,
Yeah.
and if we're not going to cause any ripples, they're not going to have any problems, and they can bring in literally anything they want to. We're looking for a stabilised population on the planet. They are depopulating the planet by various, we were going on to other tangents.
AIDS and all that sort of stuff, manufactured diseases,
Manufactured diseases,
Wars.
created catastrophes.
weather warfare, earthquakes, all that sort of stuff.
I think that all comes
Manufacture.
into it. It's all been hinted at very strongly that, yeah, there are direct plans to depopulate planet Earth. It's got to get to a stable number of...
What sort of number? Do you have any idea?
No. Just that there's far too many at the moment, and the way we're going, we're heading for
Right.
serious problems.
So the idea is to manufacture these alien creatures?
Well, again, it's the cover story. Military abductions to give a cover story that we're really being invaded by hideous, nasty aliens who are only here to cause us harm.
So that would support the idea that these aliens that you saw at Peasemore aren't alien, but they're some kind of deviant human that we've been manufacturing.
It would appear that way, but totally different. It's like chalk and cheese. The programmed life forms are totally different from the, let's bracket, real aliens.
Right. So you've seen real aliens
Real
at
aliens
Peasemore.
compared to the PGs, totally different.
So what are the real aliens like?
Well, again, small compared to human standards, very frail looking. The eyes are totally different for a start. I mean, everyone's describing the large almond-shaped eyes, and that's true of the ones
So what's
I've
the
seen.
skin like? What are the nose like? What are the features like?
Yeah, well, again, that's different. I mean, I think they've tried to perfect the PGs to get as close as possible to the real aliens.
Are the real aliens themselves slaves?
Again, I seem to think that they're more in charge than the NSA are. They seem to give the impression that, you know, they can do what they want, and if we don't toe the line, it's tough for us.
Yeah. So that we've got greys walking about in the underground facility in Peasemore, and who else is reptilian?
Again, I saw just the one reptilian, and it would also
and what
give
kind
the
of features
impression.
did he have?
Sorry?
What kind of features did the reptilian have?
Well, it again gave the impression of being very strong, very powerful. It's difficult to describe.
What sort of clothing did these guys wear? Did they have a weapon on board? Did they like a ray gun?
But what would you know? What would be a weapon? Someone so advanced.
I mean, some people have seen this rod that they have. What sort of symbols did they have on their
No
chin?
symbols noticed. Clothing. I mean, I think you'd be hard pushed to differentiate between the skin, if you can call it skin, of this thing, and any clothing it would have worn. It all just seemed to be all one.
Right.
No distinctive armbands or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And certainly no weapons detectable. I mean.
So that's what you saw at Peasemore in the late 70s.
Mm.
And were you able to communicate with these things, or were you allowed to? Or
I wouldn't have known where to begin, but I was told that the Greys could certainly pick up faults.
right.
So you were told quietly to perhaps don't think of certain things because your thoughts could be picked up. So that's easier said than done. I mean,
Right.
you can't control your thought processes.
What about the reptilian lizard man?
Well, then again, the term.
I mean, would he look like a lizard man, or is it a lizard man?
I wouldn't
more?
say it. No, I wouldn't say it looked anything like a lizard at all. No, it's difficult to try and describe what sort of reptile I thought it looked like. I mean to be honest, I've never seen anything like it.
What would make them look like a reptile to call them reptilian?
I think the eyes, more than anything. I mean,
cat's eyes, vertical slit.
well, the vertical, yeah.
Yeah.
Odd, just very, very odd. I mean, you heard rumours from other guards that it had a snake's tongue,
Right.
And I haven't seen it, so I couldn't say, but
Right.
lots of rumours fly around as well.
So how is Peasemore accessed, and how is it connected to other facilities here in Britain?
It's accessed through 3 major establishments: Harwell, Greenham Common and Watchfield, by underground
What
link.
specifically at these 3 locations? What's Greenham Common obviously is the place where they stored cruise missiles in the 80s, and now I've
That was a damn good cover then, yeah. Well, obviously that entrance is still going to be there. At Harwell, you can.
That's where the civilian Rutherford and Appleton labs are.
That's where the surveys run from. You access the.
That's the survey, which is the World Genetic Survey.
Yeah. Now you access that through a lift. The same with the military place at Watchfield. That's accessed through a lift. So it's really only Greenham Common that it's through the underground bunker.
So what about the other place at Watchfield?
That also, you go down.
What precisely at Watchfield? that we're looking for?
Well, that's the Royal Science Laboratories at Watchfield.
Is that a civilian or a
No,
army?
it's military.
Military.
Yeah.
So these three places converge into this place called Peasmore.
Yeah.
What about Foley? Is it South Foley that the
South Foley. I've been told to let just a little bit of information out that South Foley is used by the NSA directly. That's their sort of...
Is it still used today in 1996?
I'm told so, yeah. That's their sort of London area base, although base perhaps is the wrong word, but certainly that's, they use that.
So you mentioned before that these embryos are flown out in rabbits' wombs from Boscombe Down and all those sort of places. What other bases outside the general Peasmore area are connected with this program?
Oh, quite a few. I've listed in, I think it's number 14 of my documents. I've listed all the underground installations in the UK. Now, a number of those are connected to the programme and survey. Not all.
Such as what? Can you mention any?
Safely mention.
Boscombe Down?
Boscombe Down, obviously, yeah, because that's where the hardware's
What
flown
about
in and out.
RAF Machrihanish?
Machrihanish is used again for the NATO Firefly craft, one of the hardware.
Well, here at Bentwaters, what's this facility here got to do with the facilities that you're talking about?
Here they've got a large underground system.
This is obviously the place in 1980 where Larry Warren was at, where the UFO events happened for three days.
That's right, yep. Over December 1980. Something definitely strange happened here. But there's a very large underground complex here. I've been told is on a non-full use status, so I couldn't actually say what may or may not be going on here.
But is this connected with the Mannequin project or any of any of the other projects?
Not as far as I know, no. But there is a possibility because they use a number of underground installations to store the PGs anyway.
And this is obviously the site where something happened a while back, and the military is meant to have had contact with the aliens.
Well, they certainly had contact with something, yeah.
What sort of size of facility are we dealing with at Peasmore?
Well, as I say, if we go by the 1979 time scale, 450 yards by 650 yards, deepest point round about a mile. But I was informed sometime after that work was taking place there, so they could have doubled that size easy, no problem at all.
So they're running these creatures out and shipping them in rabbits to the United States? Is the genetic labs, are they manufacturing them at Peasmore and sending them out to Alabama? Is that what you mentioned earlier?
Ah, Alabama, yeah, that's...
Whereabouts in Alabama? Do you know?
You've got two locations in Alabama. I don't think... Well, everyone knows one of those locations. I'm not quite sure whether I should actually, at this stage, mention the other location.
Well, why not?
Well, I haven't been given the go-ahead to release certain information on the American side yet, so perhaps...
Well, what's the first place that has already been mentioned?
Well, let's run through the list of the ones I know I've safely given out so far. Fort Detrick, Edgewood Arsenal. Everyone keeps mentioning Mount Weather, but I've got that on the A list, but not an active list, so I really couldn't comment on that.
There's a small town, Ormond or Oron or some place like that. Is that a familiar name? Small, short name like that? No. Rudlow Manor.
I knew we'd get to that. Old Chestnut, Rudlow Manor. Now, that's the main UFO place in this country. Now, obviously, I don't know 100% what they've got lurking underneath Rudlow Manor. I can only hint that perhaps that's one of the main storage points for the program hardware.
What kind of hardware are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about, our super machines. Oh no, the hardware itself, not the PGs. I don't think Rudlow has anything to do with the PGs at all. I think they're more of the hardware, the craft, if you like.
Right, or the physical craft?
Physical craft, yeah.
But talking about physical craft, where else are the aliens kept, or the alien craft kept in Britain?
Boscombe Down, possibility of Rudlow Manor. As I said, there's a big question mark with that. Macron-Hanish, certainly used. RAF Leman.
Where's that?
Oh, that's up north.
Is there a place in Kent as well?
Yeah, but in Kent you're edging onto the DARPA territory.
What's DARPA?
That's the Defence Advanced Research Projects Agency, who work very closely with NASA. They're heavily into anti-gravity machines.
So that's where we make our man-made flying discs?
Yeah, amongst other things.
Like what?
Well, they're heavily into anti-gravity. They're heavily into interdimensional. The field.
Getting more precisely down to what you know precisely and on your involvement with things. At Peasmore, we've talked about the reptilians. We've talked about the alien, the greys being made there. What kind of you've mentioned Project Mannequin as well. What exactly is Project Mannequin all about?
Project Mannequin is the creation of life forms, military abductions, microchipping on a mass scale. I mean, the NSA's aim is to virtually microchip everyone in this country alone. So you know the scale they're working at. I mean, the UK, the USA, Canada, anywhere. It's going to be a mass.
And what's the purpose of that?
We get back to the same old thing. Let's give it the old title everyone's used so far, the New World Order, the One World Government.
And what's the alien connection with that?
I think at some stage in the past, where we were working hand in hand with the aliens,
has that stopped?
I think it's got to a stage now where we've abused the technology they let us have, and it's a case now where they certainly don't trust us for reasons unknown to myself. We can't trust them.
So there's a double cross happening.
It's a double cross sort of situation. I don't think we can trust the aliens anymore.
I mean, could we ever trust the aliens? And
I think we did in the beginning.
Well, which aliens are we dealing with specifically? Can you name any races or types or anything?
I think the Greys are the ones that we basically can't trust anymore. The Reptilians, I'm not too sure about.
You couldn't trust them to start with anyway?
Strange characters, yeah.
And what about these blonde types? What about
the Nordics? Well, I think perhaps we shouldn't trust those, even though they seem to be the more trustworthy of them all. You know, they're giving messages of love and goodness and all the rest of it.
So are these directly involved with the NSA facilities here in England?
The Nordics, no. The other two types, certainly, yeah.
Is that the only two types you saw at Peasmore?
Yeah, it's the only two types I know of, yeah, that were connected with Peasmore. Massive. I mean, I could only go, obviously, judging by the 7981 time scale, it was very large then, so by now it's...
So did you ship these things out in trucks or what?
Well, you asked me that before. I never actually saw anything larger than, say, a 30 hundredweight van.
So obviously, I mean, if these things are being bred there, I mean, where do they all go? I mean, if we take cattle, it takes so many thousand of those. I mean, they take up space. So where do they all go?
Stored at various locations. I mean, there came a time, let me see, the end of 1994, when word was going around that they had to start storing the PGs at a different location because they were having security problems at Peasmore. So they were looking around.
What sort of security problems were these?
Too many people were coming out with information that, yeah, certain created life forms were being stored at a certain base in Berkshire.
I.e. Peasmore.
Peasmore. And damage limitation
Because it's very difficult to find Peasmore. There's nothing feasibly available or visible on top. So how can you prove, or how can you back up what
I cannot
your claims?
prove, obviously, that there is anything at Peasmore at all. I can only relate what I know, what I saw, what I heard, and what I went through. There's no physical proof, obviously.
Yeah.
I could just say, like, okay, everyone knows there is an installation at Groom Lake, but
you can go and see it.
You can go and see that, but you can't find S4, for example,
Yes.
or Dulcie,
Yeah.
or one of a number of
So
other...
essentially, the Peasmore facility is a British or English version of Dulcie.
Virtually, yeah.
Ultimately, you've been releasing these documents called The Voice. What exactly got you to release those or make them, and what do you hope to achieve with them?
The ideal way to get this information out would be to document in stages all this information, disseminate it amongst other researchers who then would redistribute to their friends and colleagues, eventually to get as many people to know about the information as possible. Well, it's reached a stage now when it's been, just over 2 years since the first document was produced.
And we've seen elements of the content of these documents appear in certain popular television programs.
Again, yes, it's been very coincidental. 2 separate incidents have occurred in the X-Files alone, which directly mirror information I've released in these documents.
Such as?
On one occasion, an X-Files episode, Paperclip, in season 3, they showed what could only be described as the result of a huge American government survey of a database held, it's comprised of millions probably of individuals' medical data going back to childhood, including their DNA.
So the scene in X-Files for the vast on the underground cavern, where that's real.
In the mountainside. Well,
what about the Greys who are contained in the same facility? Is that real? Does that?
Well, again, very, very similar. They seem to mirror what I've actually tried to explain in these documents.
And
a second example would have been in the manga X-Files comic. One storyline in that was centred around what can only be described as a trip seat, their version, where Scully, in this instance, was strapped to the trip seat and programmed, and she didn't know reality from non-reality. It was a very spooky thing to read.
So if you've been stuck in this trip seat, how do we know that anything you're saying is true?
Good question. I mean, all this could be pure government disinformation.
So how can we believe what you're saying? What can you give us which would indicate that what you're saying...
Other than the physical scars and my own memories, there's nothing I can give by way of proof at all.
So we've tried to get the photographs.
That's on 2 attempts and failed.
So the BDI have decided that you can't have those photographs anymore.
I think it was way above those. The NSA knew directly.
What was in the photographs? If you're not able to release the photographs physically, what did those photographs show?
A number of photographs. They showed the base, various areas of the base, the PG storage areas, the main personnel at Peasmore.
And who were they?
You have Robert Whitemore, who runs...
Or ran Peasmore at that time?
In 79 to 81, he certainly was in charge. I believe he certainly still is. Sams, he's the head of security. I'm going to be careful how I name some of these names now.
Yeah.
Pachowski, Hodge, and I'm not quite sure I should name the other individual who's connected with Portland Down.
Why?
Well, I've been told I would be open to libel should this particular individual stand up and say, well, no, I have nothing to do with such an organisation, such an installation and such a work.
Right.
But everyone who's read the documents will know who I'm referring to.
Right.
But certainly that particular person is directly connected with
so
the
you're
management
talking
project.
about people who are involved with major government civilian projects, are directly involved with these.
Civilian and military, yeah. Directly connected. As I said, this last person's name connected with Porton Down. Now, obviously, he can confirm or deny any knowledge of the Mannequin Project. He can confirm or deny any knowledge of Peasmore, but certainly his name is on the documentation.
So, taking it from there, we have a project where the British government is involved, or under the orders of the NSA, to manufacture alien creatures and to also abduct human beings.
And have them microchipped, yes.
And have them microchipped. Are they involved with the genetic engineering as well? Are we
That's
generating
all part and
crossbreeds?
parcel. The two are running simultaneously, the survey and the project.
So how are these creatures controlled?
By a central computer. Yeah.
And how does that computer communicate with these beings? They're using the mind-controlled transmissions which are transmitted?
It's very similar to the way they control the microchip humans. The electronic brain link.
And what is that precisely?
Well, that's an extremely low frequency setup, very powerful. The NSA can switch from Minworth Hill in Yorkshire, which is the main area for the running of the network in this country.
Yes.
In the United States, there's 2 or 3 locations which I'm not aware of.
So how does that piggyback? How does that communicate? How does that get to us all? Does it affect ordinary human beings as well?
Depending on the sensitivity of each individual, yes, certain people can pick up. I mean, you get some people say they hear strange buzzies, noises, ringing in the ears or whatever. It can affect a fairly close range the equilibrium of an individual. So you literally could get knocked off your feet with a very strong signal. Those are not microchipped. Oh, yeah.
I mean, are you saying it paralyses you in such a way that you collapse, or?
It would depend on the sensitivity of the person. Certainly, someone, literally could, lose their balance.
Have you heard cases of that, or?
I have known cases, yeah.
What about the other 4 security guards that work with you? Are they not able to communicate all this stuff out as well, or?
Well, the other 3 British, those 3 no longer work at Peasmore. I believe one is dead. I believe one was picked up in the Midlands, and one is on the run. The last I heard from him, Harry Reeder, I believe he's still in Holland. The last communication I got was when he was in Amsterdam. And
why are they running? I mean, you're obviously not being pursued. We're standing here beside Bentwaters.
I think I've got a slightly different situation too. Now, those other 3 individuals would have come straight out to the papers. They would have literally gone to the papers, where I'm not quite so stupid. I'm trying to do it in a more subtle way of releasing the information. Harry Reeder, for a start, was a bit of a troublemaker, and he definitely would have gone to the media first. And so he was deemed more of a threat than I am.
So he was bumped off then?
I believe he's still being chased around Amsterdam.
So when did you last talk to him, and what did you say? Was there anything important that you could relay?
Yeah, last November he phoned and basically said that he was skipping around Holland to keep out the way, warning me that the programme were trying to find other locations to store the PGs because they were worried that storing them solely at Peasmore wasn't a viable proposition anymore.
Because you've broken the news of its existence?
Well, among others, yeah.
And who else has broken the news?
Well, there's a number of individuals over here which, if I name names, those individuals would then be placed in a position of danger and also personal trauma, so I can't name names.
Right, can you give any rough details which would allow us to figure out what sort of things they've been saying?
Certain individuals here and overseas have been hinting strongly at military abductions. They've been trying to give as much information on various underground installations in the United States that deem worthy of some sort of investigation by researchers.
It's related to present day information or information at the time?
Well, it's going to be a mixture of both. Information I had first-hand knowledge of, plus information past direct. So, yeah, current day. It'll be right up to date.
So this is a current project. It hasn't been shut down like this base that we're standing beside.
It got close to being shut down on a couple of occasions.
Does it cost a lot of money?
Well, obviously, if it gets put on the back burner, yeah, there's money lost everywhere, especially with this genetic business, yeah.
There's a lot of wastage?
A lot of, yeah.
So a lot of people are dragged in there and just trashed?
A hell of a lot. I mean, if you can imagine...
What kind of money, what sort of quantity you're dealing with?
Well, you're talking millions of dollars. We're talking about the loss of, I mean, the spare parts side, let's call it that, earns their millions per year. So if that revenue's lost, even for a few months, that's some money. Look how many kids go missing every year. Okay, individuals that go missing, in a majority of cases, there's a legitimate reason for them going missing, but there's a percentage that just get taken away.
And they're used for breeding or for spare parts?
Spare parts.
Are these spare parts used for humans, or are they used for these?
Yeah, organ donation. Well, you say organ donations. There's a very big market for organ transplantation these days. Those with more than enough money, who won't wait for the right organ to come along, will just buy into that market. The market's there.
So that's a sideline to finance this, is that right?
Oh yeah. That's a nasty, sinister sideline they've got, and that's increased rapidly. And it's got to proportion now, well, it's hideous just to think about it. It's on such a, because obviously there's a lot of dark goings on run by NASA alone. It could go on for ages.
So this again all seems to tie, and this all again ties in with this slave race thing that they're manufacturing.
Oh yeah.
Alien spacecraft. So I mean, the alien spacecraft people are seeing aren't alien; they're ours. Is that what you're saying?
Some are ours, and some are. Obviously, there must be aliens. Otherwise, we're more clever than I thought, and they're all military.
Yeah. So finally, let's base ourselves at Peasmore. Where is Peasmore connected to in the chain physically, underground?
Physically connected to Watchfield, Harwell, and Green and Common.
And what facilities at Watchfield and Harwell?
Well, Harwell, it's let's call it a disguise as an atomic energy commission type of research establishment. It's good cover. At Watchfield, it's the military. It's a science academy of some sort. Is a good cover. And of course, Green and Common was used as the one of the two main cruise missile bases. Molesworth being the other one.
And outside of that area, what other main facilities in Britain are we dealing with?
Got to look closely at Porton Down, which they work very closely with. Boscombe Down, because they use that as the import-export area.
That they fly in the embryos or fly them out? Or?
But obviously that takes place. Also the hardware, mainly the hardware, is flown in and out of the UK via Boscombe Down, but they also use Macron-Hanish.
Yeah, well that's a long way away.
It is, but again we edge onto that so-called Aurora project. It's all connected with the...
What do you mean by the so-called Aurora project?
Well, I think that's another red herring that's been deliberately fed to researchers. Give them a code word, give them Aurora, and they'll run themselves ragged trying to find out what Aurora is, and all the time it's just another piece of program hardware. They're a very advanced one at that.
And has that got spaceflight capability, or?
I believe it's suborbital, but I think we're
in
all...
summary, what do you think what's generally happening?
Well, more and more military abductions are going to take place. More and more people are going to be microchipped. There's going to be more mind manipulation on the citizens of the UK unless someone actually does something about it. I mean, it's all going to be done in such a subtle way. This New World Order business.
You're talking about mass annihilation of the civilian population?
It's not going to be annihilation, it's going to be a case of we're all going to be under their control and we're not even going to know about it.
Can you not say that that's what's happening now? Are we not under that control already?
We still have quite a lot of free will. At the moment, once we're all microchipped, that's all gone.